NBA offseason is well underway, and it just feels like there are some teams in the Eastern Conference who still have a lot of work to do. And the first team that comes to mind for me are the Chicago Bulls.
The Bulls?
Yeah, the Bulls. And here's why.
Mm.
I just feel like the Chicago Bulls need to decide, okay, are we really going to stick by Lonzo Ball? Can he be healthy? Can we get him ready for the season and consistent? Or should we move on to Io or even Caruso at the starting point guard? Because I'm sick of this Lonzo in for 10 games, out for 20, in for 3, out for 15. I mean, come on. It's hard to get consistency and win games and stay within the top 1 through 6 with that going on at your starting point guard position.
You know what? I think that is the reason why they signed Goran Dragic. That is why. They did that because they know that Lonzo Ball is inconsistent. And I believe that the Bulls organization know that there's a gap. I believe they trust his ability. They want to see his skills develop, and they want to see his playmaking on their court for that team, but they can't trust his availability. So when I saw the signing of Goran Dragic, I said, yeah. They did that as a backup. So we already know what Goran can do. I mean, he can, when he's given the opportunity, yes, he's a little aged, but I think he still has something to offer, right? And so when we're talking about putting him in even off the bench, if for some reason Lonzo Ball cannot show, I do trust that Goran can be a great backup, to fill in. He reminds me a lot in this case, not in playmaking, but how he can be utilized as the Cavs utilized Ricky Rubio.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that's where I felt the Bulls signed him just to absorb Lonzo's propensity to miss in action. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Because Lonzo is like, I still see him ducking De'Aaron Fox.
You've been on that one for a while.
Yeah, it seems like he's always out when he has to play those tough, aggressive, gritty, nitty point guards. So that's why I think the Chicago Bulls. Now, I do have another one too. I think the Chicago Bulls need to decide whose team it is. Is it Zach LaVine's team or is it DeMar DeRozan's team? And who's going to take the last shot? It's nice to have options, granted. But I still think role identification is important. And that's part of Billy Donovan's job.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that confused that last season was the fact that Zach LaVine was compromised through injury. So DeMar DeRozan somebody had to do it. I mean, I might as well, since I'm here, might as well be me. And he showed out, so it didn't help the case of, well, whose team this really is. I still believe the team is Zach LaVine's. I still believe that, but he has to now prove it to everybody that he is still the man, because that DeMar DeRozan came in and was like, well, since you're not, I will. No, that's good. That's a good point. That's a good point. Speaking of another team in the East, I think that if the Hornets can figure out a way to tap into some defensive measures in their process, they can be a team that can compete very well. Do you not know the Hornets have been in the 10th spot for the last 3 seasons since they drafted LaMelo Ball?
Wow.
So there is something about those players on that roster from an offensive standpoint that is really powerful. But offense can't get you wins when you don't have zero defense. Like, defense is nowhere to be found. And I think that's one of the reasons why they actually now brought back Coach Clifford, because when Coach Clifford was their coach back in, I want to say 2013, 14, or whenever he was their coach, they were top 10. The Hornets were top 10 in defense. So the Hornets is missing, for me, one of the things that they're missing is that they're missing some type of defensive presence. And when they figure that one out, then I think they'll be able to now compete and maybe move up in the standings, because they can maintain the 10 spot. But I mean, at this point, before LaMelo Ball came over, they were barely making the playoffs. Now they can make the plan, but now you 10 spot every year since. Okay, now you're complacent. So once they feel that missing piece of what defense looks like, I think that they could be more formidable in the playoffs.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because that offense, I mean, they got it. Terry Rozier, LaMelo, like, let LaMelo Ball loose. But you're right, the other side of the basketball.
Yeah, and then when
defend,
you got to be able to defend. I mean, in the highlights from them when LaMelo passes the ball to Bridges, those things, and got Oubre sitting over there in a corner waiting, amazing. But then when the ball goes back to their opponent, They're able to get
Yeah.
their shot off in the first 60 seconds, and y'all still trying to figure out how to defend that. You got to fix that. So until they do that, they're going to always struggle in the East. And I don't think they'll ever see any spot higher than 10. And if some of these other teams get together, they'll be down at the bottom again with other teams. So I will almost say who the teams were, but I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so the Hornets defense, get it together.
Okay. Now, I have the Miami Heat as a team that still has some work to do. I know Miami Heat finished number 1 in the Eastern Conference last season, but I just really wasn't impressed with them.
No, I agree. Oh,
Isn't that how could that be? How could you be number 1 in the East and still not be impressive? Just something's missing. Okay, so here's what I think. I think they need to get younger at point guard. Kyle Lowry is just not it. He's not it. He's 36 years old. We got Oladipo at 30. We could also go with Gabe Vincent, who's 26. I just don't know. It's something about that lead spot. It's just not doing it for me for the Miami Heat. Kyle Lowry really let me down last season.
We were expecting, I was expecting Toronto 2019 Kyle Lowry. I didn't get that. And maybe because it's due to injuries, he is much older now. Things have changed. It is a new, team. He is Toronto, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
So he's here with Miami, and I was unimpressed as well. And I agree with you. You've mentioned in a previous video that you felt that the Miami Heat roster was stale.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that. I support that, and I think they need to make some changes because they'll continue to be at the top, but they won't see no part of hoisting up a trophy. And that's not Wayne. With this, I don't get it. I agree.
Yeah, and if that's the main goal, then yeah, you're right. Need to make some changes. I also think they need to move Tyler Hero to the starting shooting guard position. He won 6-man already. He doesn't need to win it for 2 years straight. Like, put him in the starting lineup. Get that offense moving,
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Robinson, you need to earn it again. I agree 100%. I'm going to go with the Hawks.
Okay.
Now, I know that the Hawks made a major move this offseason by acquiring DeJounte Murray. And for me, that is a huge pickup. That backcourt is going to be something to watch. However, I'm still going to lean on defense. Now, I don't care how. The only thing that they got 2 things when they got DeJounte Murray. They got his offense and his defense because he's really good at defense as well. I mean, he can get you some steals, right? But he can't do it by himself. So I think that the Hawks need one more player that they can utilize to help be a defensive-minded, maybe only defensive-minded, that will help them in those situations where DeJounte Murray just can't do it all. That's what I think. Because if you wait for Trae Young to do it, it ain't going to happen.
He's too little anyway. He's just
exactly, and he's not supposed to, right? And so, as long as the Hawks keep him where they like him to be and where he is in his zone of genius, then it works. But DeJounte Murray was a great pickup, but I still think that the Hawks lack another defensive presence that will help them get back to where they were in 2021. So I think the Hawks still have some work to do in that manner.
Okay. Now, interesting enough, with the Hawks, though, I think Capella is a pretty good defender. John Collins, are you saying they need more of a defender on the perimeter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. On the perimeter. And then, and I'm not saying they have to be a starter. They just need something else, right? Because eventually these players will sit down. When I look at it, the other players, other teams that they're going to be up against, they got some strong players on their team. And when I see the Hawks, although from a shooting and offensive perspective, they look pretty good, but I'm like, what you gonna do when we go to the other end of the court? There's something that's missing for me. Now I know DeJounte Murray, he's swift and he can get in and he's not afraid to do that because I think he got that dog, right? Somebody else I think that can help overall down the stretch. It may not show up in the first part of the season. We're talking about after All-Star break when we started. Now they're starting to look at how they're going to sit in the seeding. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we may see that could be another issue that they face for this upcoming season if they don't figure out somebody else that can be strong, defensive minded that they need. Just one other person, I think.